Hi, welcome to another episode of Tell Me How You're Mighty, Infidelity Survival Stories. I'm your host, Tracy Shorn, otherwise known as Chump Lady, and I'm here with my co-host, Sarah Gorel in the UK. And our guest today is the mom blogger extraordinaire, Jenny Ball.
Hello, hello.
You might know Jenny as the Happy HausFrau, or from her Facebook community, the Happy HausFrau Porch. She's been a safe haven for single parents to share their struggles. And intersecting with this community, there's a lot of chump stories there and here. So welcome, Jenny. I'm a big fan of your writing.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, well, we're happy to have you here. So I was wondering, can you tell us a bit about the shitty experience that brought you here, that made you a single mom blogger and
Sure. Well,
and all the rest? I know you've told it before.
Oh yeah, my story. I'm one of the older versions of the divorced chumps. I was a stay-at-home mom with 4 little kids, and my then husband, one night after dinner, announced that he leased an apartment, and I'm sitting there doing dishes, and I was like, "Oh, for who?" And the rest is history. And I ended up, it was a many years long experience.
Yeah.
Full of lawyers and tears and children and wine and sadness.
And like Sarah, you have 4 kids, and they were what, like 10 elementary
10 and under.
10 and under.
It sounds like he sort of was quite casual in his approach to this, then just suddenly making this announcement as you're going through a sort of normal day-to-day family.
It was we were just about to fire up a movie.
What?
Yeah, and he dropped it on me. I was just like, oh, okay. I went upstairs and threw up, and then came downstairs, and we started to watch Chicago.
You're kidding.
No, it was bizarre. When looking back, well, it's just like this earth-shattering news. What do you do? I couldn't process
Chicago.
it.
Yeah.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, take me away.
So was there a part of you that didn't feel it was real, that this was just, him, I don't know, having a little moment, and then you could move on, watch Chicago, get back to normal family life?
Well, right. Because like I said, when something that massive is dropped in your lap, what do? Watch a movie, have some popcorn.
It's too much to absorb. I mean, the monumental shock and the grief of it, you can only take a tiny little bite at a time. So yeah, it's really hard to do the right things. I'm probably getting ahead of the story, but because I followed your story for a while. But he did a thing, as the lawyers call, voluntary impoverishment. Could you talk about that? Like, you've been out of the workforce, right? And then this guy gets his apartment, and then decides to quit his high earning job and leave you holding the bag for 4 kids.
Yeah. When the divorce first happened, our divorce was settled in 2006. I mean, this is ancient history, but he was making a lot of money. And for about a year and a half, I was living a very okay life. It sucked. I was still getting over divorce. I was still raising kids on my own, but I had financial support. And then the day before Thanksgiving in 2007 or 2008, his lawyer showed up at my front door, papers, summons, and he had quit his job.
Oh my God.
He quit his job and took a job with a family member, I guess I'll just say, at a much reduced rate of compensation. And somehow, and to this day, I don't understand the legality of it. He had child support reduced to 0.
What?
0. Yeah. $0. And I was getting spousal maintenance. It wasn't a ton. It certainly was not enough to, support 4 children and myself, and 3 mortgages and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there was some sort of disclaimer, or whatever you call that in the legal world, where the child support could be terminated, but the spousal maintenance couldn't. So that was, he took me to court for that.
What a villain.
How do you pick yourself up from that? Because you've got 4 children to support. And then the financial element as well. You kind of hear your story. Because I sometimes do that. I look back and think, how did I manage to bring these four children up on my own? But you just do. But when
Right.
everything's thrown at you, you've got the finances, you've got the responsibility of the four children. How on earth do you get past that?
Well, Sarah, you probably know, having four little kids and getting hit with this, it's honestly like you have to get up and do it every day. You have to get up. My focus was 100% and always was on my kids and getting the kids through it, getting them raised. I put myself on the back burner, which in hindsight was probably not the smartest thing to do, because then I had a lot of catching up to do. But my focus was on the kids. And it was until, my goal was to get them out of high school, get them into college, make sure that they were happy and healthy. And so every day you just get up and do it, even though it sucks. And even though I was dying inside, you
Yeah.
just have to do it.
You are the mightiest. Am I recalling that he at one point owed you? I mean, in addition to reducing his child support to zero,
Mm-hmm.
at one point he owed you what, tens of thousands of dollars, and
Oh, yeah.
get out of that. Give,
Um, he was in arrears for, I mean, it was, I don't know, 30, 40 something, 50,000. I can't remember anymore. Um, I did, a friend of mine at the time, her husband worked for a very big Minneapolis law firm and took me in as a pro bono client. And
mm,
so we got, like I said, it was years. I don't think we were settled until like 2013 or 2014. So, I mean, that was years and years. Um, but I ended up getting a small settlement. I think it was like $6,000.
yeah, yeah, that's just staggering
I
and
know, like,
so unjust. And meanwhile, you're raising children and scraping by and
yeah, four teenagers.
four teenagers.
And
At
what
the
what
point,
these what these people always say is, "I'm not leaving the kids, I'm leaving you." So I'm
oh yeah,
assuming when he announces that he's leased this apartment, it didn't have accommodation for his four children, and that he didn't mean that he was taking the four children. He was leaving you to do the grown up
yeah.
thing of bringing them up.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest lines of bullshit that I'm not leaving you, the kids. It's you and I. Well, we're a package deal. I mean, we kind of made this family together. So you can't just leave one of us. It's like picking one kid to leave. It makes no sense. They say that to make themselves feel better.
I I don't know how anyone lives with themselves doing that. It just, I mean, I hear and I read a thousand gazillion stories like this, but
Right.
it never stops shocking me.
Same, same. I know. I think I've heard it all. And then somebody will send me an email, or in my Facebook group, somebody will post something, and I'm just like, holy shit. I mean, it never ends, and it just keeps happening.
Yeah. I write a lot about entitlement, but I mean, it's one thing, I guess, it's a different level of entitlement to take away from your children. It's one thing to go, okay, me over you,
Hmm.
but there's something like primal about wanting to care for your children, I think,
Right, right.
and to be so monstrously selfish that you won't pay for them, you won't support them. It's like I call it canceling your subscription to adulting. It's just like,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't want that periodical anymore. Did I make four children? Yeah, I've moved on. Other
Right, right.
interests. Whatever.
What about his involvement in them then, in terms of being there? Did he have much to do with them? Was he an active parent, or did you do
No,
all of that?
no. He didn't see them at all for like the first almost like 6 to 9 months after he walked out. He would come over every once in a while and visit. Like I was still doing the pick me crap then. So I'd be like, come over for dinner. And he'd come
Oh,
over. And then he did get them. I was full custody, and he had every other weekend and like 1 or 2 nights of dinner a week, and then 2 weeks in the summer. And from the time the divorce happened till the time the kids grew up, he took them 1 week, one summer.
oh my
So I mean,
God.
and I never held the kids. I was never doing the pawn thing with them. I was obviously upset and mad.
Yeah.
But I would never kept the kids from him, and I encouraged them to go. And he's your dad. You get one dad, one bio dad in your life. And, so yeah, he was not super involved. We'll just put it that way.
Can you talk briefly? I know you've written about this. If you tell the quinoa story, I mean,
Oh yeah.
'cause there's a lot of people who have a lot of shame about the economic impact of becoming a single parent and
Right.
going through this devastation. You
Yeah.
had this kind of security, family security and financial
Right.
security, and it's ripped away from you. And
Yeah.
aren't the kind of social safety nets that we need to help people. And
Oh
you were
no.
like, what, you were selling stuff? I mean, please tell the quinoa story.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I had the alimony and the child support, it was great. And I had my 5-year plan. I was going to finish school. I was going to pay off the house, blah, blah. It all ended when he had the child support reduced. I was literally plunged into poverty. We lost the house because the house had been refinanced, I guess, 2 or 3 times.
Mm.
So the mortgage was like 3 or 4 grand a month. And it was just this time my dad actually built the house though. So
Oh,
yeah, it is. It's, wah, wah. But, so I lost the house to foreclosure. I found a rental in the same city. Um, and I had to file bankruptcy in 2010 because there was no way I was going to be able to claw my way out of that. So I was I was in dire poverty with 4 kids. And I ended up having to go to the food shelf because I think I had like $14 in my checking account or something. And you can't even go to Aldi for that. So I was like, I had to go to the food shelf. And I wrote a story about that. The quinoa, there was a food drive at the school. I worked at my kids' school. And they were doing a food drive, and there was a bunch of, it's a more of an upper class neighborhood clientele there. And so there was a bunch of fancy food and, yummy stuff. And a coworker was walking by and she said, "Oh, those people will never know what to do with this stuff." She's like, "Quinoa?" And I'm sitting there, I said, "I love quinoa," you know? And so this,
she had no idea what
no,
states you
nobody
were
really
in.
knew. Nobody except my best friends knew that I was just how much I was struggling. But I did have enormous support and love from once I started writing about it.
Hmm.
People, I decided, fuck it, I'm just going to write about it. I don't care who knows. People need to see this side of it because
Yeah.
we don't see this side of it in the social media or in the writings and movies and TV. You don't see the struggle that happens when a marriage ends like this, when there's such a disparity of power.
I think for me, I was lucky financially because I'd always been the main wage earner. So
Yeah.
I had a full-time job, and I'd always supported both of us. But what went was somebody that my youngest child was 2. I
Ugh,
was working a shift where I was getting home quite late in the evening. There is no
yeah.
childcare at that time. He waltzes off. I'm left with 4 children and desperately trying to work out a way to carry on working and deal with the children. And
Right.
it was impossible, especially since it happened so suddenly. And
Right.
and you're sort of left with this situation where you've got to do it because you've got no other option. And
Exactly.
you talk about your ex taking them on holiday for a week. Well, mine's never done that, but what he does do, which is always very kind, is he's been on numerous holidays, so he will text them asking if they'd like a little gift from the gift shop
Oh,
on
that's
his
so
way
sweet
back from
of him.
holiday, which is lovely, very thoughtful. It's usually accompanied by "I love you to the moon and back," or sort of
Oh my God.
a lot of over the top emotion.
He sounds like a gem. I'm really sorry it didn't work out.
I love you to the moon and back.
Yeah,
Oh
all that sort
my
of stuff.
God.
Apparently not love you to Bermuda and back or whatever, to the moon.
Do you find it hard though? You say, "Oh, well, he's your biological dad, so see him." And I know that quite often when the remaining parent gets told that they've alienated children from the one that's left, and it is hard, I think, when you see someone who is just relinquishing themselves of all parental responsibility to then say to your children, "Well, he's your dad. You go to have these little snippets. I'll do all the hard work, all the
Yeah.
drudge. You go off and have dinner with him, and
Yeah.
he's your dad. He still gets those privileges."
Yep.
Yeah. That's the whole high road argument that people are, oh, you gotta. That's when I first was going through this and I was so ragey at him. And I mean, the injustice of it all was so overwhelming. And everything I read said, no, you take the high road, you turn the other cheek, you be the classy one. And that's when I kind of
Oh my
thought,
God.
screw it. No, I don't want to be on the high road. I mean, I will in some respects, like as far as in front of the children, when
Like he's
because they were
alive. You took
little.
the high road. I mean, it's people who make those, smug pronouncements have not lived this. And
No,
it's such a crazy view. I mean, I started my blog for very same reasons. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, really? Like, I'm not supposed to be devastated by this. This person defrauded
right,
me. Like, I'm the bitter one. Are you kidding me? I
exactly,
like you. How would you feel if someone stole your pension fund? Well, if I called you bitter, well,
right,
it's more
right,
than a pension fund.
right. It,
Yeah, the
it's
discourse is
scary.
crazy. Can you
It's
talk about your hatred of friends with ex's social media posts?
that I mean that boy, I can really go off on a tangent there. The whole that thing, and it hits. It's like fucking clockwork. It's every spring when t-ball and baseball and everything starts up, and then it's over the holidays, and you will get all of these, influencers and everybody doing their social media posts. My favorite is the one with the four parents shot from the back, and they've got like stepmom, bio mom, that, and they're all like, kumbaya at the
Oh
sidelines
no.
of the t-ball game, and it's just like, and everybody's like, oh, that's the way to do it. Now this is how to co-parent. Now you guys, you are really putting your kids first. And the rage I feel
Oh,
is the way that it shames people for having very real and very normal reactions and emotions to a very horrible situation.
yeah.
It's so ridiculous. And my big thing has always been, you don't have to be friends with them. And that's, I put my kids first by showing them the boundaries I have as a human being. Like I would, if somebody beat one of my kids up, I wouldn't have them over for dinner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on, I
Amen.
understand. Feelings happen. No, I modeled for my kids putting myself ahead of all that garbage, because we do have to take care of ourselves. And mentally, you can't do that if you're eating your shit sandwich.
Yeah. Sarah, in England, do you have this whole, I don't know, holier than thou smug co-parenting thing? It's a,
I think it's wherever you go, really. I think it
yeah.
knows no bounds, doesn't it? And I think the one thing that really annoys me though is this. So my son was 16 yesterday, and he's not
Oh,
seen his father since his ninth birthday, when he said he's always been a very black and white child, Theo, and he said to his father, because his father would just pop up for birthdays and Christmas, and Theo said to his dad, if you can't be there properly, I don't want to see you. I'm not here just for birthdays and Christmases. To which my ex burst into tears, disappeared into the ether, and had no contact with Theo, apart from sporadic texts once in a while. And my theory is, Theo's a very bright little boy. It wasn't for me to facilitate that relationship. I'd say to him, if you want to see him, you can, but it wasn't up to me to make up for the shortfall. But I would imagine a lot of people that know that my children don't really see their father, the blame is on me rather than on him. So my ex-mother-in-law came round one day and she said to Theo, oh, why don't you see your lovely daddy? But she's not saying to her own son, why aren't you putting the effort into your own children? She's trying to shift the blame onto a child, saying that
Mm-hmm.
it's in some way his fault because he doesn't want this fake relationship with his father.
Right, right. That it's a super misogynistic thing too. And you can see that your ex, how he was raised, obviously by somebody who taught him no accountability and blame shifting and gaslighting. That's how they do it. That's how they roll.
And good for Theo. Theo's, what a good kid who has his head screwed on straight. I mean, yeah, he sounds
Yeah.
really emotionally healthy and he's got a strong role model in you, Sarah. I mean, I think, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think black and white is a bit harsh. I just, I think people can use black and white in a, oh, you're judgy kind of way. I just think that child was really perceptive and he didn't want to get hurt.
No,
He'd
and
been
that's
hurt and he didn't want to be hurt further. And he felt strong enough to say that to an adult, which he's
right.
mighty. I mean, happy birthday,
And
Theo.
he is absolutely adamant. He doesn't want anything to do with his father. He doesn't look on him. My older two children do sort of sporadically see their dad. I've always said, he's your dad, like you, Jenny. But
Yeah.
there's a part of me that what do your children now they're older think about their father? Because I do think that they can play the sort of I'll take you out to dinner, but ultimately your parent is the one that's been there for the parents' evening, the homework, the drudge, the getting them out of bed, the finding the school shoes, the picking up the socks. That's what being a real parent is, isn't it?
Yeah. I used to say that parenting is Sunday night. Sunday night is parenting because that's, weekend's great. You can do whatever you want in the weekend, but Sunday night is when the real world starts. And I was with my kids every Sunday night of their lives.
Yeah.
But my kids are older now. I've got one, they go from 29 down to 23. And two of them, one has a fairly good relationship with dad. The other ones will see him. My daughter does not see him at all. They don't talk. She can't remember the last time she saw him. And my other boys will like see him for a couple hours, like on Christmas.
Hmm.
But and your son to have boundaries like that at 16 is amazing. Like that's so cool.
I still find it difficult though, because my daughter who's 17, she's the one that sees him most. My oldest son, who's now 22, he did see him quite a lot because he sort of popped up again when they got to teenage years and they were a bit easier and he could take them out for dinner and he didn't have to do any of the other stuff. And
Right,
so
right.
my oldest son saw quite a lot of him, but then one day came back and said, "Do you know what? I don't really think he's my sort of person." And then he does see him, but very, very sporadically. My daughter, he's very good at buying them things that they want. So Harry Styles tickets, he'll buy the top tickets, but he won't buy the new pair of shoes that are needed for school. So
Right.
she sees quite a lot of him, and I find that really difficult because I'm the one that gets the flouncing and the
Yeah.
and the teenage moods. He
Yeah.
gets the happy, joyful. She doesn't dare to do that with him, and that can be
Right.
really hard.
Yeah. Well, you're safe and he's not,
Yeah. It's hard because, and especially too with the teenagers, because and that's the whole teenage brain thing. Um, it it's difficult to raise a teenager, I think, under the best of circumstances. And when you are the solo parent, custodial parent, trying to raise a teenager with the Disney dad, doing this in the back and like Harry Styles and all that, it's hard. It's hard to compete, even though it's not a competition.
Mhm.
It's hard and it's soul draining. But I will tell you, they usually come around.
Okay. I wanted to talk because I was a single parent for many years and you were a single parent doing it. And our kids turned out great. They aren't indicted. They aren't drug addicts. They're
No
not
jail time.
no jail time. I'm like, if I had listened to all the doomsday scenarios that were I read about in all those reconciliation sites and
Right.
David Brooks and everywhere else about how my child was supposed to wind up and your children were supposed to wind, oh my God, they had single mothers and they're not criminals. So
Right.
discuss would anybody like to take on doomsday single mother
Well,
tropes?
that's the whole that's the trope. That's the stereotype is every criminal in the world grew up in a broken home.
Mhm.
And that it's when you're doing it, like when you're in the thick of it, that is kind of in the back of your mind. So like anytime, and I had four teenagers, so I had a couple late night police calls, busted parties, um, kids making dumb choices, which is what kids do. But I always had that kind of going in the back of my mind, like, shit, it's me. It's because I'm doing this on my own. This is my fault. It's my bad. And it's not. The reality is it's raising kids is hard. And they're gonna screw up, you're gonna screw up, we're all gonna screw up.
And why
But
are we blaming the show up parent? It's a hard job,
exactly.
right?
It is. And then the one who, like we were talking about earlier, it's women, especially women. I know there are chumped dads and men out there too, and it sucks for everybody, but the single moms, the divorced moms in particular, just get reamed. And we are blamed universally for so many world problems. And it's just, it's horrible. It's awful.
I had it. I had it the other day where a man started ranting. I don't know. I was just walking the dog and got embroiled in a conversation with someone, and he started ranting about single mothers. And I said, "I'm a single mother." And then I said, "What about the people? What about the parent that leaves? Why aren't you ranting about them?" You're right, Tracy. It's the person that stays that gets the blame. Nobody ever says, "Oh, look at you. What's he doing, gadding around on holiday and with his new partner?" The blame falls firmly on the shoulders of the left behind parent.
Absolutely. And that it goes on to when the dads are applauded for being a parent. Dads get oh my God, you are such a good dad. If they show them, putting a ponytail in their kid's hair. And in the meantime, I'm filling out FAFSAs and getting kids through life. And we are like, oh yeah, well, his mom's a single mom. That's why, it's just, it's gross.
At least I say that when my son was in kindergarten and I said that I was, at that point, fairly newly divorced, been divorced for about a year or two. Um, the kindergarten teacher, who was a woman of advanced age, said, "I've never had a single mother before."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what? Like, am I a two-headed calf? Are you kidding? Like, divorce is like a thing. Like, nobody's ever asked for separate parent-teacher conferences or, I mean, like, or whatever, two of something because there's two households.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
she was guaranteed she'd had them. She just didn't know.
yeah. Oh no, yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. But they come out okay, And if they don't, it's still not your fault. Plenty of screwed up kids come up from, intact homes. I tell people, you don't have a broken home. You're still an intact family, but you're just minus one fuckwit. It's okay.
Exactly. If anything, it's a fixed home. It's a repaired home. It's a good home. It's not broken.
Yeah.
It's just it's just the way society treats moms in these situations is deplorable. I'll go ahead and say that.
Is there
Yeah.
any recognition from your ex that he hasn't been the parent? Now your children are adults. Do you think he has regret that he looks back and thinks, I should have been raising them? I have had next to nothing to do with bringing up these children. Was there any realization at any point over the last few years that he's
No,
missed out? He doesn't know
no,
them as people in the way that you do.
not that I know of. No, I mean, very early on, there was an email sent at like 2 a.m. that was apologetic and, I made the wrong choices, which I'm sure was fueled by a couple drinks, but nothing. I mean, I don't talk to him at all. The minute the kids turned 18 and we no longer had to co-parent, I mean, boom, talk about, gray rock, meh. That's where I went with that because you don't have to deal with them anymore. And it's a pleasure to not have to deal with them anymore. But no, I think regret and maybe I like to fantasize about him on his deathbed thinking that, but I don't think that they do. I think they are truly missing some integral part of their being that would cause that regret.
I agree with you. I agree with you. My daughter, when she got her GCSE results a year ago, she did really well. And she obviously told her dad, and I then get a text from her father, who's had nothing to do with next to nothing to do with saying, "I am so proud of her. Are you?" And I was staggered by that level of, lack of self-awareness. Are you proud of the daughter that you left when she was 6 years old for me pretty much to do it on my own? And now he's asking you, I am so proud. How can you be so proud of somebody that you've had minimal involvement with?
Well, of
It's
course.
like being proud of a friend's kid. Yeah. You had nothing to do with it, buddy.
Yeah, nothing to do with it. But to me, the dagger of "are you?" As if you wouldn't be. The person who did it all, who did all the heavy lifting raising this child. Are you? Oh my God. I would just, I would be incandescent with rage. Here's a story for you guys. My, my son's father, my first ex, hadn't seen his son in 3 years, but showed up for college move-in day.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
I'm taking time off work, packing up the car, moving him in, folding the laundry, the whole thing. And we are at a restaurant where my son gets a text from his father that he's on his way to show up for like all the freshman parent, to take a victory lap on this kid that he did not raise, to be there for all the parental glory. Yeah. And I just said to my son, you know what? You and your dad can have a nice time. And I, you know, unpacked his car and helped him schlep things in. And then, we left.
Yeah.
And he can figure it out, because I'm sure part of it was the whole triangulating and being, as I call it, the turd in the punch bowl. But I'm
Yeah.
like, the unmitigated gall of coming to be like, oh yes, I'm a parent here, so proudly sending my child off to college, I'll be an empty nester now. I'm like, dude, you haven't had any nests. Like, and he paid not a dime towards
Yeah.
college or
Yeah.
graduate school or anything else, and
Yeah.
he owes me thousands in back support. But I'm not bitter. No, I mean, it's like,
Me
yeah,
neither.
yeah, I know, it's staggering. What I was going to ask Jenny is, does your ex aware of your writing career? I mean, does
Oh,
he?
yeah.
Oh
He was
yeah.
one of my first blog readers. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, when I first started the blog, I got an email from him. I can't remember the specifics of it, but it was like, vaguely threatening, sort of like, oh, kind of tiptoeing around that. And I luckily am friends with a few people who are attorneys, and I bounced it off of them. I had one go through the blog, and that's when I learned all the legal parts of blogging. And yeah, he was aware. I believe he and the lady, the mistress slash wife, Skankenstein, I believe that they were frequent readers, because every once in a while I'd get a text or something, or the kids would hear something in conversation. So sometimes I wrote because knowing that they'd read it, because that
Okay.
was my outlet. That was better than a text.
Well, and you started this in 2010, so he has
Yep.
not dissuaded you from speaking your truth or writing about it.
No, and that's exactly it. It is your truth. It's your story. And you are allowed to tell what happened to you. And it's okay. And that's
So
what I think women need to know. It's okay to talk about it. And it's okay to express to the world that you're mad and sad.
why did you create a support community for single moms?
Why?
Yeah.
Because they needed it. We all need it. It My Facebook page, I stopped my Facebook page a couple of years ago just because it became so overwhelming, during our whole United States time, which has been fun the past few years. But I mean, I would get emails, messages, comments on the blog. Women, especially, desperately need to know they're not alone in this. Um, when we first started, Tracy, there was nothing out there. I mean,
No,
it
nothing.
was all reconciliation stuff.
Yeah.
And I
Start
was like,
your
oh,
marriage.
God, I'm not doing it. Yeah. So it was desperately needed, and it always will be needed, because right now someone's getting the bad news. Right now someone's being walked out on, and they need to know that they're not alone. They need to know that you can get through it, and they need to know that what they're feeling is normal and okay, and they're not crazy, they're not bitter, they're not immature. it,
Yeah.
it's needed. People need to know they're not alone.
Well, on that note, I thought we would segue into a segment we call Fuckwit of the Week.
Nice. All right.
They're shameless, unreliable, and gobsmackingly entitled. It's Fuckwit of the Week.
Hi, Tracy. This is Cheryl. I have a submission for Fuckwit of the Week. I am still stuck in my house with the fuckwit who I asked to leave. I've already lawyered up, and he hasn't left yet, so it's a long story. I'm trying to pry him out of here, but meanwhile, he feels entitled to whatever. And so he was out of town for work, wink, wink, no, he wasn't, and asked me for the password for my meditation app, which also has sleep stories that my young son listens to. This is an app that was important to me to calm down and relax during my anxious phase as a marriage police, and he refused to pay for any of it. I'd paid for it myself. So he wanted the password for it, and I told him no. And then later that week, I heard him on the phone with another woman, and she wanted to meditate with him using their app. And it occurred to me that he wanted my password to use my app so he could relax and meditate with Schmoopy. Also of note, I could tell by his credit card bill and email that I saw that he had previously gifted this very same app to Schmoopy. So he paid for her to have it, but he's too cheap to pay for it for himself and wants me to pay for it and give him the password so he can use it with the other woman. I think this deserves a fuckwit of the week.
Oh, that's a fuckwit.
Namaste, asshole. Yeah. Seriously. The balls on these people, it's insane. That's why I think that they're not wired the same way we are. They don't get it. Like, I don't think they understand how ludicrous it is.
Yeah.
It's just staggering, isn't it? My reaction is just like there are no words. It's because it's just every time you think that they can't get worse, they somehow manage to. And it's the lack of self-awareness. It's the fact that they don't actually realize how
it is
astonishingly badly they're behaving.
And the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot in the divorce talks. Yeah. And I believe that there are a fair number of narcissists. I don't believe that all of these guys are, though. I think it's a combination of personality disorders along with there's something wrong with them. Like, there's something missing. Jennifer Aniston and I got divorced together at the same time. And she said something about Brad. She said he's missing a human chip or a personality chip. And I was like, oh, Jen. Yeah. She was right on about
Jen. Yeah.
Yeah. We were very close.
No, I think they are missing chip, but I joke about like a spousal appliance or, a partner appliance. And it's like a thing, well, you're just my appliance. You just provide for me. That's what you do. So of course I can have your password. Do you have a thing? Of course it's my thing, and then of course I'll share that with my affair partner because, it's my thing.
Right.
It's the total, not recognizing your autonomy and that you expecting you to have no boundaries. It's hard to have boundaries with these people because they expect that you will have no boundaries, and there's something wrong with you for having a boundary.
Yeah, it doesn't sink into them, and it's sociopathic. Like Sarah, I'm speechless most of the time when I hear all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think I've shared my favorite thing my ex-husband said to me when we were, again, like you, Jenny, I was doing the pick me dance. I was desperately trying to realize, try and work out what I had done to drive this poor individual to an affair.
Right,
and
right.
We were sitting talking about it, and he said, well, the thing is she was always there. She could go out. You always need babysitters. It's like, well, of course, because they're not just my children, they're your children as well. Of course you need babysitters. We have 4 children. She doesn't. She's young, free, and single.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. And then I think about the affair partner or the other partner, and I just don't get it. To me, it's mind boggling, but that's because I think we have normal personalities or sane personalities. It's just mind blowing.
Well, in the case of the fuckwit of the week, how would the affair partner feel to know that she's gotten the wife's meditation app? I mean, that's the whole thing too. They're getting leftovers or whatever. They're having to share it's not in the same universe of wrong, but it's like no one is special. So whenever anyone wants to pick me down, just remember no one's special. Everyone's getting, gross leftovers. And it's all about them.
And I think they put a nice spin on it though, because we are not privy to what goes on with them. And so who knows what story they're getting.
Yeah. I still, in both of your cases, the affair partner knew that the guy had 4 children and was married.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure you were just horrible, bitter shrews who didn't understand them. I mean, what kind of story could you tell someone to go like, oh yes, I shall proceed with this relationship?
Yeah. Yeah. Mine called me fat and crazy.
Oh.
Yeah, that was that. We had a medical incident with one of our kids a long time ago, and it was in the middle of the night, and I got a call. They were with their dad because for like a year or so they did the every other weekend. And I got a call, and the child needed to go to the hospital. And apparently, Big Daddy, as I called him, he was real choked up and couldn't talk. And so he gave the phone to her. And as my child was having a medical emergency, she proceeded to tell me that I was fat and that I was crazy and that she had read all my letters to my ex when I was desperately trying to fix things and said that they were hilarious. And then she said, we're married now. And I was like, I remember at the moment, all I could come up with was congratulations, because
Oh, she's a
where my kid
sick
is. Yeah. So
motherfucker.
that was, yeah, it was.
Karma is coming for her. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's like the bullying. It's next level. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
It's so
awful. But
mean and unnecessary. And yeah.
it was horrible. You look back on it, but I think my kids and I are so close, and we have an amazing little family. And
What advice do you have for anybody who's listening who's in the trenches?
just love your kids. Focus on getting them, through school. Show up every day when you can. But I also would recommend finding some support. And whether it's beautiful people online that you meet, whether it's friends in real life, relatives, it's super important to know that you're not alone. And you're not, because it's so isolating and so scary when it first happens. But you will get through
I think
it.
as well, you realize when they've gone that you haven't lost somebody that was a supportive partner. You've lost an extra child. I feel like I lost a fifth child. I didn't.
For
would have
sure.
loved a fifth child.
He wasn't pulling his weight. He wasn't doing, I was doing it all anyway.
Yeah.
I was dealing with a big overgrown fifth child, and it was easier when I just had four to deal with.
I would say you
were the
lost a
breadwinner.
childish fuckwit. You did not, a child you would mourn, but a fuckwit is someone who is just immature, like a child,
Right.
but malicious. But yes, your responsibilities got less, not greater.
Mine was a paycheck. He was the financial support. So when he was gone, that's what I missed. I missed having, obviously I missed having a partner, but to have to do it, Sarah, you were the breadwinner. So thank God for that. So you didn't have to think about where your next meal was coming from. But at the same time, it's just like, it's like you realize how little they contributed to the whole relationship.
Yeah. And you guys are so strong. You're out on the other side of it, and the kids are okay. And that's
The kids
a
are all
testament
right.
to your mightiness. That wraps another episode of Tell Me How You're Mighty. You want to leave us a mighty story or a fuckwit of the week submission? Check out our new website, tellmehowyourmighty.com. That's yours spelt YOURE. We've got all the episodes, show notes, links to our guests, and you can see the tea room where Sarah and I first met. If you enjoyed this episode, please review the podcast and follow us. Thanks. See you next week.